Hey everyone, Prince B here. Today we're going to look at an anime and manga called Kashimashi, Girl Meets Girl. Kashimashi is a yuri or girl and girl relationship story detailing the story of boy-turned-girl Hazumu Osaragi. For the purpose of this review, I went ahead and both watched the original anime in Japanese with English subtitles, as well as read the translated manga. I did, however, watch the first episode with English dubs as well, just to get an idea of the voice acting there. First, let's start with a brief overview of the plot. The story begins with Hazumu climbing Mount Kashima as he attempts to get over being rejected by his classmate and love interest Yasuna Kamizumi. Meanwhile, his friends and family grow worried by his absence and begin searching for him. His childhood friend Tomari Kurusu figures out where he is and heads there. Meanwhile, an alien spacecraft crashes into the mountain Hazumu is on, killing him in the process. The alien attempts to revive Hazumu and succeeds, but in the process brings him back as a girl. As Hazumu is returned to Earth, both Yasuna and Tomari catch the boy now turned girl as he awakes in the anime, while in the manga, Hazumu is returned amongst all her friends. The remainder of the story follows Hazumu's attempts to adapt to her new life, as well as his decision between Yasuna, who, as it turns out, was in fact in love with Hazumu all along, but refused to get close to him due to a medical condition that prevents her from seeing males, and Tomari, Hazumu's tomboyish childhood friend. To further complicate things, the alien, Hitoshi Sora, comes to stay with Hazumu, along with his spacecraft now in a human form, Jan-Poo, to study love in an attempt to rectify his planet's dropping population. As a result of this, the alien Sora constantly tries to push Hazumu into various romantic situations. The cast is a group of distinct characters, but sadly most serve as more of comic relief with few serious moments between them. Despite this, they did each get some degree of characterization that allows the audience to get into their heads. Probably the biggest flaw to me is the fact that these characters did primarily serve as comic relief, and the gags seemed forced. While watching the teacher monologue on how she has been single for 35 years and seeks love, only to promptly fall into a hole, out a window, or off a cliff, is mildly amusing once or even twice, it quickly becomes old. The most interesting thing to me about this story is how Hazumu reacts to the change. Rather than looking at a love triangle with 3 girls, or a love triangle with 2 girls and a boy, it looks at it from the aspect of a girl who was, until quite recently, a male. This seemed to be explored more in the manga, where Hazumu has quite a few times where she has doubts as to whether she can truly adapt to her new life situation. This brings us to the differences in the manga and anime adaptations. While the manga seemed to have more sub-story plots, the anime had fewer, but seemed to go in depth with the ones it did have. Further, the manga does actually explain the reason why, upon being brought back, Hazumu was turned into a girl, while the matter was somewhat glossed over in the anime. The art was good. While not mind-blowingly fantastic or revolutionary, it was definitely visually pleasing to watch. Further, in the anime, the animation is smooth, so I don't really have any complaints there. As for sound and vocals, which obviously doesn't apply for the manga, it kind of depends on whether we're talking about the Japanese or English version. To be clear in the future, I generally prefer the original Japanese version of any anime or even song. I almost exclusively watch anime in the original Japanese, with the exception of maybe Black Butler, which, being set in England, I felt lends itself well to being in English, but more on that at a later date. With that in mind, naturally I'll probably prefer the Japanese version. That said, the Japanese VA work was pretty good, in my opinion, of course. Naturally, not actually speaking Japanese myself, I could be completely wrong and they could have gotten the worst possible voice actors. Regardless, I enjoyed the Japanese VA work, especially the gratuitous English used there, as that's something I always find rather funny. The same cannot be said, sadly, for the English version. None of the voices seem to fit the characters, except maybe Hazumu's female voice. Further, although I couldn't be quite sure, it looked as though the voices didn't sync up to the animation all the way in the English version. Minor details, but I would personally recommend the Japanese version. As for music, it was gorgeous, fitting the moods nicely, so there's not really much more to say on that. Overall, Kashimashi is good. Not great, but good. Its selling point obviously being the examination of how Hazumu handles her change. While it doesn't do anything super groundbreaking, it's still a fun and fairly unique story. I feel that the alien, Sora's mission to examine the interactions of humans and love, as well as the way lifespans work as described in the manga, but left out in the anime, would have been a huge selling point, but was sadly just a bit underdeveloped. For all of these reasons, I'd give Kashimashi Girl Meets Girl an above average 7 out of 10. If you're a fan of gender swap stories like me, or you're a fan of the Yuri genre in general, you'll probably enjoy Kashimashi. If you aren't a fan of either of those things, then it probably isn't worth your time. Well, that's my review of Kashimashi Girl Meets Girl. Thanks for watching, and as always, like, comment, subscribe, leave any thoughts down below, and we'll see you next time.